Be yourself, King. Should be yourself. And really the greatest thing that you could be is to be yourself.
What's up, everybody? This is the Ike Inspirations podcast, and today I have a nice guest named Lauren. And Lauren is a YouTuber and a writer who has the personality type of an INFJ. And being an INFJ myself, I am incredibly curious about the nature of what that looks like and how she harnesses her intuition for herself. So if you're into personality types and if you yourself are an INFJ, this will be a great podcast for you. So let's start off, Lauren. What inspired you to be what inspired you to do intuitive writing, and what does that look like for you?
Well, I started writing years and years ago, and I always had a lot of trouble writing. I always had huge problems writing. I took creative writing classes, and I never did very well. Okay. And I would read creative writing books, and I couldn't do it like everyone else did it. I couldn't do outlines. I couldn't plan things out. I didn't get an idea and then flesh it out and come up with all the steps. I just couldn't do it. I would always crash and burn. And then I found a silent writing program where I didn't have to plan anything out, and I just showed up and I wrote once a week for an hour silently. And that's how I wrote my novel. And then I was like, oh, well, I can do this. I just have to do it my own way, which meant no planning at all. And I would talk to people, other writers, and say, yeah, I don't plan my books. And they were like, that's crazy. Like, they just thought I was nuts. They were like, you don't plan anything? Like, and sometimes people were suspicious, and sometimes they were troubled themselves. Like, it really disconcerted them. It unsettled them. You know, what do you mean you don't plan? But I just kept with it. And now I've published 8 books. You know, I've got 4 or 5 more, like, sort of on the assembly line ready to come out. And I haven't planned any of them. I found that when I really embraced right brain consciousness, which is what I'm calling it now, intuitiveness, you know, your intuition, that's when I can create, and that's when I can most easily make things in the world, is when I do it from a right brain place instead of a left brain place.
This is so interesting, and I really would like to have a conversation focused on that intuition versus rationality, because that's something that I think I embody both, and sometimes have a hard time talking about and really living by. Are you familiar with the book The Artist's Way?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So I've read that book, and from reading that book by Julia Cameron, I've learned about this concept that has drastically changed my life, which is, if you read the book, you're familiar with the morning pages. And when you were talking, it reminded me of that, because basically it's like you're writing with no expectations or like really no goal. And I've started doing morning pages every day, Monday through Friday, not with the intentions of becoming an author or writing a book, but just to learn more about myself. And once I've done it, like, it has changed my life, and now I enjoy writing. It's the first thing, well, besides praying and working out, it's like one of the first things I do every single day, and I look forward to it because it's like, I don't know, it's so fun for me. And so when you were talking about that, it reminded me about The Artist's Way and morning pages. Is that something you incorporate into your life?
I don't do the morning pages myself. However, I know The Artist's Way is a very right-brained approach to creativity. And I have both too, you know, and whenever I talk about left brain and right brain, people say, well, I have both, or I'm intuitive and I'm rational. And that's fine. I'm not urging people to pick a side, but I want intuitive people to be aware we live in a very left brain society.
For sure.
So our workplaces, our schools, our government, the way we do things, it's all overly left brain. Everything is divided into pieces. Everything is rational steps. Everything is a problem to be solved. Sometimes that works. Sometimes you need that approach, but you don't need it all the time. You know, you don't need it when you are intimately bonding with someone in a relationship, when you are creating works of art, when you're going on feeling and intuition and symbolism and imagery, the things that can't be spoken, but that can be felt. That's when you want to move into the right brain consciousness. And we have no tools to do that in our society. It's not encouraged. And honestly, a lot of people are very threatened by it. So intuitive people are kind of left just sort of flailing by ourselves,
Yeah.
with no education about it at all.
Well, for you, what are the personal benefits of following that right brain side of yourself? Because for me, like you mentioned, I grew up in a household and just in a society that doesn't really value that. And and for me, when I'm doing this podcast, I feel like I'm using my right brain. I'm just going off what I feel, whatever comes to mind, I just say it, and it's really fun for me. And when I do my morning routines, it's the same thing. I'm curious, like for you, what are the benefits of following the right side of your brain in comparison to like the left side? You know?
Well, so like if we look at it from business, being an
Okay.
entrepreneur, with a left brain approach, which I use as well, you would map out a marketing strategy. You would map out a business plan. This is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to make money. This is how I'm going to build the product. This is the schedule of how I'm going to launch the product. And that's great. That's great to have those plans and those ideas. But with the right brain consciousness, you can build that plan. And then, as an entrepreneur or as a creator yourself, you feel into it. So maybe you're like, okay, I'm going to launch this next month. And then sometimes next month comes and you're like, yeah, this feels right. This feels good. It feels like the timing is right. I'm getting all of these green lights. It feels like it's the right time. And you launch it and everything works. Sometimes, though, you're like, I know I plan to launch this in March, but it doesn't feel right now. The energy feels off. It feels like I should wait. And if you don't listen to that and you just keep plowing ahead anyway, everything falls apart. And then you're like, oh, I knew something was off. I knew things weren't really feeling right. So I think it is important to have both, but pay attention to those feelings, especially in business, which so many people don't want to do because they feel like it's risky to listen to your feelings, but your feelings usually guide you. It's the right time. It's not the right time. Or, this is going to be smaller than you thought. This is going to be bigger than you thought. And that's okay. Your feelings allow you to surrender control. And when you can surrender your need for control, you can actually grow a lot bigger. You can actually have more energy and you can do bigger things.
Yeah. I completely agree with you. I guess for me, my problem with these type of conversations is like it feels very rude and there's a lack of clarity. And I feel like you're an INFJ, I am an INFJ. Because of our intuitive prowess, we acknowledge each other. However, when I come across other people and I start talking about it, it may not be as like, oh, I get it, or like I acknowledge it. How do you come across that issue of communicating how this intuitive part of you to others? Because I feel like that's something that I just often keep to myself, but I want to share more of.
Well, I'll say it really depends on the person.
Okay.
And this is where you have to use your intuition too. Some people, they're not interested.
Yeah.
They're not there. They feel very anxious if they can't have control. And even though I feel like, well, we only have the illusion of control.
Yeah.
They feel like they need to have control. They want to have plans. They want to have things on a schedule. And, come hell or high water, it's going to be that way. And it doesn't matter if the timing's off. They're going to push through. It doesn't matter if they're getting all of the signs that show them to slow down. They want to stick to what they want to do. With those types of people, there's no need to waste your energy. They're on their own path. They're learning a lesson there. Do not get between them and their lesson. They may choose to surrender control in the future. They may choose to say, I see I'm making myself very anxious and worked up all of the time because I'm trying to control everything. And I think everything should be predictable. And I want to know what every outcome is going to be. That is their business. If someone's more open, if they reach out to me and they initiate what I call like a bid for connection. So they say, hey, I noticed you mentioned right timing. What does that mean to you? Or, you talked about feeling into the energy. What can you talk more about that? I'm happy to share. I'm happy to talk about it. I'm happy to share anything and be very transparent. But it really comes down to where the person is at. I don't try to force it on anyone.
Yeah, I feel you. I think that's wise to essentially meet people where they're at so that because you can't really convince anyone of anything. And so you can really all you can do is really meet them at where they're at, and being an INFJ, I'm just and your identity is really you really put a strong identity in it. I know you have a YouTube channel and your website is heavily catered towards it. I'm curious, when did you first learn about the personality type and how did it impact your life when you discovered what it was?
Well, I had a very slow office job years ago. 15 years ago now. I was always an executive assistant, and I worked at startups that were very, high pressure, demanding, a lot of things to do. And then the last startup I landed at was not that at all. It was very sleepy. There wasn't much to do at all, but I had to be there 5 days a week, and I had to be at my desk. And so I started just browsing the internet. I had nothing else to do. And I started taking online quizzes, and I found the MBTI personality system. And then I started reading into the INFJ thing, and it really made sense. And it was sort of like the introvert piece that, most people, they figure out, oh, I'm an introvert. That explains so much. And this was like, oh, this explains even more. And then I had a writing group. I loved writing, and I started coaching writers, and I had a blog, and I wrote a few articles, on INFJs and writing or INFPs and writing, and I got a big response. And then everybody who got in contact with me who wanted coaching, they said, I found you because I found that article. And that article hit me so deeply. I knew I had to contact you and hire you as my coach. And so then I started working with a lot of different INFJs and INFPs. And now I teach classes. I teach a new class every month. And I've met hundreds and hundreds of INFJs and INFPs. And so now I really know the type so well because I've known so many people in real life. Yeah. And that's changed my perspective on it as well.
That's awesome. I'm curious, what was that article about that attracted you to so many different individuals?
I think it was just like why INFJ writers have so many problems writing. I mean, I wrote it in like 2013, 2012. It was a long time ago, but it was a very basic article.
Okay. And I'm just curious, like what, just writing in general, or like, what about writing was like the struggle? I guess what's the answer to that question for you?
Well, so I'll say there's a few big stumbling blocks that intuitive people tend to have with writing. Number one is perfectionism.
Okay.
We overthink things. We analyze things to death. We want a plan, but we don't do very well with a plan, but we can get lost in a plan. Mm-hmm. And then it's like we've taken a whole year and done nothing but plan, but we've never actually written a chapter.
Gotcha.
Another thing is procrastination. We put things off and we put things off, but then we feel really deep shame about it. We have a lot of shame around self-expression. Intuitive people tend to have what I call self-expression wounding. Oh. So when we were young, because we're intuitive and we're different, we're not usually mirrored or validated in the home. Our families don't look at us growing and learning and say, wow, that's so cool that you can do that. Or, I see that you can read people's facial expressions very well, or their energy. Like, we don't get that feedback.
Yeah.
We more get the like, why would you say that?
Yeah.
Why did you do, like, we kind of freak people out.
Yeah.
And so from a young age, we're like, oh, don't say anything. Don't say what I really see. Don't say what I really know. And then when we sit to write, whether it's a novel or a self-help book, those old wounds come up. Like, oh, don't tell people the truth. Don't tell people what you know. And we will actually get a nervous system reaction where we might get very tired and even fall asleep while writing, or we get very panicky, or we get very restless, or we start overthinking, or we get the self-criticism, really strong inner critic. So we have a lot of different problems related to that.
Interesting. And so it sounds like the problem with a lot of writers that you're referring to struggle with analysis by paralysis and like some form of procrastination that stops them from really expressing themselves. Mm-hmm. Interesting. And I think for me, when I learned about my personality type and what it meant for me, I mean, I really discovered a lot. But one of the things I most discovered, which is deep in my psyche and my soul, is like I have this deep yearning to creatively express myself.
Hmm.
However, I did not come from a background that has really flourished that. I'm a pharmacist. I went to school for 6 years. I wouldn't say that's the most creative thing. And so I've always struggled with that, because this doesn't, the creative side of me doesn't really make money, but the pharmacist side does. And the other businesses I do make money. And so I've been trying to find a way to balance that. And I think hence my morning pages routine and the podcast are two creative outlets for me to really be myself. And hence why you created a lot of you created 8 books. I feel like you probably needed some form of creative expression yourself, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. And so with the whole creative expression and whatnot, how do people tap into that and really learn to express themselves creatively without fear of judgment and putting it out in public? Because I think deep inside, as much as everyone does this for themselves internally in some way, I think we all crave some type of um I don't know, I don't want to say validation, but public reward or for what we're doing. We're putting a lot of time and effort into what we're doing. How do we balance that, if that makes sense?
Well, first, I always say, and this is so hard in our left brain society that ties everything to making money and being productive, but I say take the money piece off of it.
Okay.
Take the money piece off your creativity. That doesn't mean you'll never make money from it. Maybe you will. But in the beginning, when you're figuring out, what do I want to do? Do I want to write? Do I want to paint? Do I want to knit? I don't know. Take the money piece off of it. Go towards what makes you feel excited and what makes you feel alive, what just sounds fun.
Yeah.
You can keep your day job for now. If you absolutely hate your day job, fine, go get another job. But you don't need to put all that pressure on your writing or your art. You can find a job that's okay, that you don't hate, that pays the bills, and then you still have time to do what you really love.
Mm.
And then the second part, I say, ultimately, yes, you may want to share it with the public. That might feel good. But in the beginning, you might really not. That might feel way too scary,
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you're writing like a memoir.
Yeah.
Or even a novel, but it has themes from your own life. And you're like, oh my gosh, my parents are going to read this. Or, oh my gosh, my uncle's going to read this. Like, that's never going to leave your mind.
Yeah.
So for intuitive people, I say at first, keep it private. Don't talk to people about it. Keep it private. When you're done, don't even reread it yourself. Because then you'll start picking it apart. You'll start doubting, like, just write it and then put it away. And then a few days later, sit down and write your next little piece and then put it away.
Yeah.
You don't need to organize it. You don't need structure right now. You don't need to overthink it. Just follow these little breadcrumbs that make you feel happy and excited. And just keep doing that for a while.
Interesting. And so for you, you're essentially claiming like just let go of the need for money or the desire for money and focus on optimizing for excitement and enjoyment.
Or like you can still have a desire for money, but put that desire in a different area.
Yeah.
Right? Like you can still, again, you can keep your day job. You don't have to be a starving artist. You can keep your day job, get a day job you like and that you're okay with, and then have your creativity somewhere without the money for a while.
Of course. Yeah, I love it. I think this great. I think it's great to acknowledge that, and I feel like that's something that a lot of people can benefit from if they actually implement it for themselves. I just feel like a lot of times we don't give ourselves enough space or environments created to let that flourish. You know what I'm saying? Because I know for me, like, I feel like I have to find a community of people or really reach out to people to really uh, have that type of process be celebrated, if that makes sense. I don't feel like that's something that people just naturally gravitate towards or talk about. Did you feel like you had to do the same, like create a community for yourself or reach out to people to really start to really get into the natural flow of doing what you do?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I say, like, this is a big generalization, but I say like mainstream type people.
Yeah.
The people who they just want a regular career and a regular family and they want to live in a regular town and that's it. Like, that's literally all they want. those people are not going to understand that I'm going to spend, 2 to 4 years writing a novel that's not going to make any money.
Yeah.
Because it's fun. They're not going to understand that. So yes, it's important to meet other writers. It's important to meet other artists. It's important to meet other creators, even if it's just one or two other people who understand I'm spending my weekends painting out in the garage because I love it. That's it. I'm investing money in the paints. I'm investing my time because this makes me happy, not because it's going to make money.
Yeah. No, I completely agree, and I hopefully it sinks in. It sinks in because I think I'm at a point in my life where I'm working towards optimizing towards enjoyment and being present, and I don't think that was always the case. And since doing so, I feel like I've experienced a lot of just a great love for life that I never had, and I think it's because I've let go of the desire for power and for lust and for money. But don't get me wrong, it's still there. It's still there, and I have to balance it. I have a bunch of entrepreneurs on who are multimillionaires, and I aspire to have some part of their lifestyle. But then I also have creative artists and writers like you who inspire me in their own type of ways to live my life to the fullest and let go of all those materialistic things. So for me, it's really a lot about balance and maintaining that balance. How do you feel about balance? Is that something that is easy for you, or do what does that look like for you?
I don't know that balance is easy for any INFJ.
Yeah.
I do want to say too, because I think INFJs can get very extreme, like, oh, I have to let go of like all of the materialistic desires in the material world, and I have to only be in the spiritual and the artistic. You can still want wealth. You can still want to have a comfortable lifestyle. You can still want to own things.
Yeah.
What I see in society, though, is that there's this unspoken acceptance of it's okay to sacrifice your mental or physical health for those things. That's where I draw the line. You should never be sacrificing your mental health or your physical health in the pursuit of getting more stuff. And we see this with like hustle culture.
Yeah.
And you got to be working all the time. And you don't have to be working all the time. And human beings should not be working all the time. Hustle culture can be extremely damaging, especially if somebody has toxic shame, or they have wounds where they've never felt good enough, or they have critical parents, or they don't feel comfortable in their own skin. That hustle culture, well, you just get on the hamster wheel and you never stop running. It's really easy. You just never stop running, and you get little treats, you get little, rewards, and you feel a little better, and then it goes away and you need more, and you keep running. And then you wake up one day and you're like, I have chronic illness. I'm exhausted. My relationships have fallen away. I don't know who I am. And I have high anxiety. And that all comes with that hamster wheel. So it's fine to want a really nice car. It's fine to want a really nice house. You can get those things without sacrificing your mental or physical health.
Yeah, the biggest problem with that too is that I feel like it leads to burnout, as like you said, and I feel like I don't think it's sustainable, like you said. And so I guess it's like, at what peace of mind does it cost you for obsessing over things that I don't know really matter in the end of the day? So I love it, and I think it's important to acknowledge, and hopefully we get to a place where more people realize that, because I think way too many times a lot of people are living frivolously and mindlessly, doing things without really no set of intentions. At least for me, that's something I've noticed. I feel like a lot of people, if you ask them why they're doing what they do, whether it's the 9 to 5 or the relationship they're in, I think there's a lack of depth or understanding of why they're really doing it. I don't know if you feel like that, but I personally feel like that, and I don't know.
Oh yeah, this is something I teach about in my classes all the time, is the false self.
Yeah.
That we build a personality based on what we think other people expect from us. And so that personality you might be the nice one, you might be the successful one, you might be the black sheep, you might be the scapegoat, you might be the rebel, you might be this, that, or the other. But we build this personality based on what we think our family expects from us, and then how we think we need to fit into friend groups and school. in workplaces. And if we don't slow down and we don't examine, wait a minute, who am I? What do I want? We do wake up, usually in the middle of life, saying, I don't know who I am. Everything around me reflects this false self I've built to please other people. And I've always had this anxiety, and I've always had this depression, and I don't know why. And because we feel empty inside. We're not truly deeply connecting with people who we feel see us. They see us for our real self. We're not connecting with what we really want to do here. And it brings this feeling of, it's metaphysical despair. And I think a lot of people in today's society are in metaphysical despair, and they don't know it.
Well, I think a lot of people are in that state of mind, because I think there's also a lack of awareness. Like, say if you've been depressed or stressed for years or decades, like that's literally like your baseline. That's all you know. So if someone is telling you about another reality or another possible feeling, you can't even understand, or even like, you might think you're happy, but you're even if you're not, if you know, you could be angry all the time and not even like realize that's your normal state of mind, because that's what you know, you don't know what you don't know. And so I guess for people who may feel like they're in that like you said, that despair, like because I feel like I see it all the time, just whether I'm at work or whoever I'm interacting with. What would you say people can do to get out of that like state of mind?
Well, I know you're an INFJ, so you're like, how can I help people
to
grow and evolve so they don't have to be there? You can introduce different topics. You can recommend different books people read, but you can't pull somebody out of a specific energy field. And you can't give people an experience they haven't had yet. It's kind of like if you've never experienced being in love with someone. Okay. You don't know what that's like. Yeah. And so maybe you go out on dates with people and you say, well, he's perfectly nice, or they're perfectly nice. I could date them. They're attractive and they're successful and they seem nice. We have good conversations. Why not? But if you've actually been in love before, you're like, well, yes, they are perfectly nice, but I'm not in love with them. Feeling that someone is attractive and perfectly nice is completely different than being in love with them. Because when you're truly in love with someone, you actually don't really care if they are conventionally attractive or nice at all. You're just like, I have to be with this person. Yeah. I can't stop thinking about them. I want to be with them all the time. I want to reorder my life so that it includes them, no matter what that brings with it. And so it completely upends your world. And that's how a lot of big, deep life experiences are. They upend your entire world. And you can't give that to someone else. Those have to happen for them naturally. Yeah. And when they do, they'll have these awakening points and they'll be on their journey. And some people might never get there either. And that's okay too. It's hard. It's hard to say like, oh, I could see how things could be so much better if you could just see this. We can't give those experiences to people. I felt like that was something I struggled with a lot when I was younger. Because I have this deep desire to help people, but it can almost come at your own burden. And especially when I was younger, like, you know, I would say in my younger 20s, I would see flaws in people, and out of a genuine desire to want to help them, I would, you know, point it out. But then what ended up happening was it would just come back at me, because it's like, oh, well, what you think you know it all? Like, you know, or like, who are you to tell me that? And to be fair, like, I do think there's a level of truth to that. Like, I was really young, and I feel like there's a level of ego to think you can change someone. I really did think I can do that when I was younger. And I was like, oh, I can really change this person if I really put my mind to it. I don't know why I was thinking like that, but as I've gotten older, there's this like wise saying that's, I think, is like when the I think it's like when the student when the student appears, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And so I'm learning to stop really projecting what I think is right for someone unless they come and seek it, like, you know. Well, to be fair, though, I will say intuitives really struggle with that growing up, because what is obvious to us is hidden to others.
Yeah.
And we don't realize that. It's so natural to us. When we're 5, 6 years old, we can look at someone and say, oh, they're sad and they're hiding it.
Yeah.
Or, oh, they're angry and they're trying not to show me they're angry. They're trying to make me believe they're cheerful. We see that so easily, and we don't understand that other people don't.
Yeah.
So we tend to blurt, and to us, it's like saying, oh, it's raining outside. Yeah. And then we don't understand until we have experience after experience that it's not like saying something obvious. It's threatening to other people. And we will back people into psychological corners without even knowing it. And then we get a big backlash on us. And we're like, what did I do? And it really, I would say even into the late 20s, early 30s, we're still really navigating our intuitive abilities. And then we ultimately do learn, don't say anything. Most of the time, we see more about people than they can see about themselves.
Yeah. And I was literally going to ask you, like, how do you personally navigate that? But I guess for you, it's like, just let it be. Don't even try to.
I'm 46 years old now. And unless someone directly asks me, hey, what do you think about the way I did this? I don't say anything. I keep quiet.
That's interesting, and for the most part, I'm the same way, because there's so many times. I guess you seem to have experiences where it backfired. I guess for me, something that I've been doing a bit more is that when those opportunities do come, instead of being critical or really explaining what I think is really going on, I've learned to start validating people's feelings and not necessarily just going to like, oh, this is what's wrong with you, or let me try to fix you. And I feel like when I open that place for connection, it leads for correction.
Yes, and that's where I came to when someone would come to me and say, I keep having this problem and I don't know why. And I would say, well, I know why. And instead of now saying, hey, this is what's going on, I would more slow down and say, well, how does that make you feel?
Yeah.
Or what do you think you'd like to do? So I try to ask questions so they can open up a dialogue with themselves.
Yeah, and hence why I guess for me, I love asking questions, and why I have this podcast. It gives me an opportunity to ask those questions. So, I'm curious, another thing I know that you write about and talk about on your YouTube channel, Lauren, is you mentioned INFJs are neurodiverse. And that was interesting, and it caught my eye. And I'm just curious, can you expand on that? What does that mean for you? Or look like?
Well, okay, so this is kind of a sticky thing, because I really think sometimes science can help, but sometimes science can limit. And I do think that because we are so right-brained, that the way we work is labeled and categorized in certain ways by the scientific community. So I know some INFJ and INFP people who have said, I've been diagnosed as autistic, and this is great. It's explained so much. It's opened up so much. And I've had others who have said, I've been diagnosed as autistic and I feel like something's wrong with me. And this has been damaging. Same thing with ADHD. Many INF people they say, well, I have ADHD. And so for some, it's freedom. And for others, it can feel like a prison. Now, I personally feel, I don't think that INF people, intuitive people, have an inability to focus. I think it can be harder for us to focus because our brains are moving more rapidly, and we actually are receiving more information. We are receiving more information in any situation than a neurotypical person is. And so it can be hard for us to pay attention, but that doesn't mean we have an inability to do so. So if we're at a party and there's 3 groups of people talking, and we're trying to focus on one person, that can be extremely difficult for us, because we're paying attention. We get all the stuff from the other 3 groups, not only the words, but their energy dynamics. We notice that, oh, that guy over there is kind of mad that woman said something to him, and she's not noticing. Oh, she's making it worse. And they're like across the room, but we're getting that energy. So that's why I say it can be challenging for us to focus in certain situations because of our sensitivity, because of our intuition, but that doesn't mean we have the inability to do so. We also have sensory stuff. We're very sensitive to sounds, textures, foods, smells, much more so than many other neurotypical people.
Yeah, I found it interesting that you spoke about that and felt the need to make that connection because I never really thought about it. But for me, I have ADHD, and when I figured out about ADHD and my diagnosis, I don't really want to say it changed anything because I'm still me, but it brought a lot of freedom of understanding who I am. And I felt like it answered a lot of questions. Like, I guess one of the questions that it answered was, I guess, like you said, like I felt like I just process information a lot differently than people, and I take in too much, and it also made me understand that I really like being in quiet environments. Like when I was studying or taking exams during pharmacy school, I would literally have to be in my own, like, and I couldn't be in an exam room with a bunch of other students. They had to put me in like my own personal test room. And it, to me, that told me what focus looks like for Ike. Like I had to be by myself, and even to this day, like I work from home. When I work from home, I'm by myself. Like, and like I'm in like a closeted room. I can't be in like a coffee shop because then it's like, whoa, who's she? Wow, what's he doing? Oh, they don't. I wonder if they're a couple, and my mind just starts like going crazy. And so I guess that closeted area is really important for me. I would imagine for a writer, it's just your writing process until like closing off yourself from the world, or not really. What does that look like for you?
It does. I actually have a silent writing program that I run
Oh, okay.
every
Cool.
month, and I've been doing it for, gosh, over 10 years now. I used
Wow.
to do it in person. Now I do it on Zoom. But
Okay.
we meet and I do a little 5-minute meditation, and then we write for an hour together. And I light a candle. I'm in my room. I have people on Zoom, but we don't talk. There's no critiquing. There's no sharing. Like we just
Yeah.
write silently together in the space.
Wow.
And that's how I get my writing done, because I can't, I need that structure. I need that routine. Okay, it's Monday, it's Thursday, it's Sunday. I'm meeting with the group. It's
Yeah.
an hour. I have all these rules. My phone can't be on. I can't be on the internet. It's just me and the page
Yeah.
for that
That,
hour.
that's
I need
interesting.
that structure.
That's interesting that you mentioned that you mentioned, because I never heard of a silent writing club, but I did hear of a silent book club, and I did join one. They had in-person ones in Atlanta, and in attempt to connect with other communities while just finding people who love to read. I found a silent book club, and it was cool. Like I went in there, like no one was talking, and we were just reading together, and I like that dynamic because I feel like it doesn't I think you can connect in solitude. At least in my opinion, I feel like I wish that was more of a thing. I feel like I don't like the pressure to feel like we have to talk just for the sake of talking. I don't know if you if you ever felt like that, but I'm like, sometimes I wish we can connect just doing things together. I don't know, what do you feel like that, or
Well, so I will say, I think for intuitive people, for intuitive introverts, INFJs and INFPs, we are thin boundary people, which means
okay.
we're born with thin boundaries.
Oh, okay.
The boundaries in our own minds are thinner. The boundaries between our thoughts and emotions are thin, between our past and our present, between us and other people, between the different eras of our life. So we're thin boundary people. And so when we connect with anyone, even if it's a casual conversation, it tends to be more intense for us. It's not like people just come into our space and we chat with them and it bounces off of us.
Yeah.
You've probably noticed this because you're observant, that some people, usually extroverts, it's like they can just kind of banter with people.
Yeah.
And then the people like pass on. It's like no big thing.
Yeah.
Whereas when you sit with someone, you're looking into their eyes.
Yeah.
You're like giving them your full attention. You're reading their energy. You're picking up on the way they're talking. You're asking them follow-up questions.
Yeah.
And a lot of times somebody will just have, had a casual encounter with you, but they told you something really deep or something secret.
Yeah.
They confided in you. And so it feels good. We like to do it, but it takes more energy.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, like parties or social events where we're talking to many different people, it very quickly exhausts us. Even hanging out with one friend, having coffee for a couple hours, we're like, oh, I need a nap now. I need to go home and just kind of, so sometimes like being in a group where I think they call it parallel play. Or like
Mm-hmm.
you're doing your thing and I'm doing my thing, but we're not talking.
Yeah.
That can be our favorite thing. And a lot of times when we have a partner, we'll like to do that. Like you're on your
Yeah.
laptop and I'm on my laptop, but we're not talking.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a big thing for us, and we feel weird about it because we're like, well, other people don't. Other people want to talk all the time, and we don't.
Yeah. That's exactly how I feel. Like, and I yearn for more of those connections, but I never heard. You said parallel play.
Parallel play.
I
Yeah, we'll
love
do it a
that.
lot of times with best friends growing up. Like we'll find another introvert, and it's like they're reading on the bed, and we're at our desk on the laptop. Like we're doing separate things together.
Yeah, that's cute. Yeah, I love that idea, and yeah, it's interesting because I've had and I think even to this day, it's just in my nature. Whenever I'm in like a huge crowd of people, like I just start getting sensory overload, and
Yeah,
I
that's
and
the
I
thin boundaries.
and I used to. In my teenager years, I was super confused by this sensory overload because everyone around me just seemed to love it and like jived around it. And I'm like, is there something wrong with me? Like, why don't I like being in a huge group of people in my church or like a cookhouse? Like, I never really enjoyed it. I didn't have this self awareness like I do now, but I was always confused and I constantly questioned myself for not liking these social interactions. And then I realized like it was really in my nature when my mom told me this. She was like, yeah, so when you were a little baby, like less than 1 years old, if whenever you were in a crowd of people, you would start crying. Like you
Yeah,
literally start crying. I was like, wow, that's so interesting. And when she told me that, I'm like, oh, this is just who I am. Like I'm not I
yeah.
was literally crying as a baby whenever I'm in public. Like
That's the
it's
thin
not and
boundaries.
it's not even like a lack of confidence. I actually love public speaking. If you told me, hey, you
Hmm.
need to do a public speaking thing, I would love to do it. But like in general, like I guess if there's no purpose to it, or if I'm just there, like I feel like I don't know. I never felt like comfortable, like or truly comfortable. Not to say that I can't be in that space, but I think you understand what I'm saying. You know?
So I'll say like if you have thin boundaries, like if you go to a baseball game when they sing the national anthem, you'll feel this big wave. You'll feel like, oh, I almost feel like I want to cry, and
Yeah,
because that's the crowd response. Or you said, going to church when
yeah,
the choir sings.
yeah,
At certain parts, you're like, oh, I feel really overwhelmed. You
yeah,
feel this wave come up. That's everyone else's energy in that building, and it's crashing over you and into you like a wave, and it's very overwhelming, and it's tiring. And
yeah,
so it actually does. You spend more energy being at church, at the baseball game, wherever, when
yeah,
those moments happen, or somebody tells a joke and everybody laughs. It's like, oh,
yeah,
we feel it.
yeah. And personally, I prefer like one-on-one interactions and places where we can have nuanced longer conversations like these, because ideally, although I know this isn't like practical, like I would like to like get to individually know everyone that I'm in a room with or interact with, because I'm like it's weird for me. I don't know how to explain it. It's like, well, I'm just seeing you. I'm just seeing you. I don't know what you're like, and my mind just keeps kind of like, I don't know who you really are. And 9 times out of 10, where we're in an environment, people have a mask on, especially in like corporate settings. So you don't really know who you're dealing with. And I get like, it throws me off. So I'm like, all right, instead of constantly being in these environments, let me create a space where I can feel like I can truly be myself and connect with like-minded individuals like Lauren, and really understand a person for who they are, not what they present themselves to be.
Well, and you can just see our conversation. You can see it's between two thin boundary people,
Mm,
because we've just glided. Oh, now we're going to talk about writing. Now we're going to
yeah,
talk about money. Now we're going to talk about overwhelm. With thick boundary people, they would have had a list. Here are
yeah,
the topics. We're moving down. Okay, we strayed a little bit. Let's come back to the topic.
yeah.
Thick boundary people are like straight line boxes.
Yeah, yeah, and so it feels more free flowing and less scheduled or structured, and I think that allows our creativity to blossom and enjoy the conversation even more. So, I mean, it's great, and it's honestly it's good speaking to other people, because with your personality, because it makes me feel less alone and more validated. And as an INFJ, I don't think it's the case now, because a friend recently told me, we're one of the rarest personalities. I thought we were the rarest, but apparently there's a new one now. I don't know. Are we the rarest one or are we not?
Well, I think it was the INFJs, INTJs, and the INFPs.
Yeah, that's what I was thought. But then I had a personality podcaster who told, I forgot the person, but she said like recently, like it changed, and it was like, yeah, I forgot that change. So I guess we're the second rarest. But regardless, the point is we're still rare. And so I haven't met people like us when I was growing up, and I always used to question, like, I'm not gonna say my sanity. I was very comfortable in my skin. I'm just like, man, are there other people who think like me, or like, or have like my same type of like, views on life and desire to learn about philosophy and whatnot. That was really what I was constantly thinking about, because I felt like I was never around people like that until I met other INFJs.
Well, I'll say you should check out my classes because it's full of INF people. And sometimes when I'm teaching, just for fun in the chat, I'm like, hey, everybody put what you're studying right now or your hobby, like put it in the chat. It's like the craziest things where someone's like, I'm getting really into mechanical engineering. I'm getting really into beekeeping. I'm making sculpture. We're always doing something that's kind of like really outside the box.
Yeah. And I think, again, that's the creative nature in us. And I love it. So, yeah, I mean, this has been good. And I'm really enjoying this conversation, Lauren. I'm glad to have you on. I'm curious, like, as you're constantly teaching and showing other people about who their true selves are and essentially building a great community, which is awesome. What would you say is like your ultimate goal with everything you're doing, or what would you like to see in the world?
It's so funny. I feel like I can say this to you because some people I say this and they're like, okay, that's weird.
Yeah.
But I tell my students, I say my ultimate goal, I really want to be like Mr. Rogers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's so cute.
I love Mr. Rogers. I've loved him when I was a kid. I loved him as an adult. And I love that he was like, I want to bring a different kind of energy to media. I want to, he always said he wanted to have a meaningful expression of care. He wanted to give people a meaningful expression of care. And that's what I want to do for people. I want to create an energy and create a space where people can come in and they can find themselves. They don't need me. They don't need to like take class after class with me.
Yeah.
But they can use what I show them or teach them to then individuate on their own and to understand other people too.
Yeah.
That's really what I want to do. I want people to become individuals and have the tools to understand other individuals and that they're not crazy. People are just different.
Yeah, Mr. Rogers, wow, that's a throwback. I haven't seen that guy in like years, but whenever I think about him, he had like an incredible, beautiful, childlike pureness to him.
Honesty.
That's all I remember about him.
Honesty.
And honesty.
And he was not afraid to talk about feelings, and he was not afraid to show vulnerability.
Well, he also had a very simple way of expressing himself too. Wow, I mean, I haven't thought about him in years, but yeah, is this interesting? I agree. Like I understand what you're saying. Like you want that energy presented wherever you're doing, and I think people really do need more of that. I think I like you. I think I would like to encourage people to really harness what it means to be themselves and really look deep into that. And to be honest, I feel like we're most ourselves when we're kids, but we didn't know it. And I feel like everything we were naturally doing as kids was somewhat type of foreshadowing of who we are. Like for example, you know how in high school and middle school you have like the news reporter or the person who tells all the news, or like maybe you see in TV shows. I was literally doing that as a kid, and I was super happy. I would go into this like little break room, and I'll be like, "Hey guys, this is the news," and like this is what it is, and I would just say it to the whole world, and I felt so useful and happy doing it. And like thinking about that, I was like, "Wow, what was it about that made me so happy?" And I felt like for that, it was like communicating it publicly. And that really made me happy while also being in a closed off room, because I was still in a closed off room and there was no like huge people, but it would be broadcasted to the whole school. And so I felt like that helped me create a space of my own that I'm utilizing now. But I feel like everyone as a kid, whether it's like a painter, like or something, even if you're into numbers and you always talk about numbers, I just feel like there's a bunch of hints that we don't pay enough attention to that really like say, oh, this is Lauren or this is Ike. Like, do you feel me?
I do. Because I'm actually teaching a class right now called Becoming Whole in a Broken World, and we did a lot with the magical child within. And so many people, when I say, go back to your childhood, what did you love? Look for these hints, as you say, they are looking for talent. And again, that's a symptom of our left brain society. What's your talent? So you can make money and be, well, I wasn't ever good at playing the piano. And I said, no, we're not looking for talent. We're looking for, when you were a child, how did you build your world, right? You built a world for yourself. Maybe it was a world of pretend, or maybe it was a world with your friends. Like you said, you were the news announcer.
Yeah.
You were the broadcaster. That was part of your world.
Yeah.
Whatever world you built as a child, whether it was totally in your mind or it was something you manifested externally, that's going to be linked to the world you want to build now. And that's what it is for a creator. You're building worlds, whether it's a community of people or it's a fictional story, or it's things that you're selling on Etsy. Like, you're inviting people into an energy and into your world, and that's going to be linked to, like you said, those hints when you were a kid. What went into your world as a kid that made you feel alive, that made you feel good and happy and excited?
Yeah, well, and I think, like, when you asked those questions and you said the people you're interacting with, they responded with talent. I think one of the issues is I don't feel like we recognize other things that aren't as, like, intuitively valuable. But, like, for example, like, okay, whenever I'm talking to someone, I always felt like I was the person who's just listening, and I feel like a lot of people, well, what does that mean to listen? What does that value look like? Well, maybe that means you can be a therapist, or you could be a life coach, and or hey, like, I figured that I'm always asking people questions. Like, that's not necessarily a direct physical skill in itself that's gonna lead to money, but it's like, okay, well, what kind of, like, what kind of places put me in an environment to ask a lot of questions? For me, it's podcasting. Again, for you, it might be life coaching. Maybe you can create a blog or a YouTube channel that asks your audience questions of stuff. But I feel like that's the type of creative thinking that is often lacking, and because we're always thinking, oh, well, I don't play basketball, or I'm not a rapper, like, and that's because that's all we're seeing instead of what we're really looking inside of us,
Well, I think, again, and I know I'm banging on about the left brain society, but we focus so much on knowledge and expertise.
Yeah.
So if somebody says, well, being a therapist, someone might say, well, I don't know a lot. Like, I don't have all this knowledge about different psychiatric disorders. You don't need that if you go for the emotional connection.
Yeah.
Something I've always been genuinely interested in other people's problems.
Mm.
I don't know why. I just am. And it doesn't even have to be the person I'm talking to. They might say, oh, my Aunt Sally, she has this pattern. She dates these toxic men. And I'm like, oh, tell me more about it. Like, I really want to know. I'm so interested. And that's a strength.
Yeah.
There's so many people in the world that are not interested in other people. And there's so many people who need people to be interested in them.
Yeah.
So a lot of the time, your strength is emotional. We just don't value that. But it is, emotional things can be a strength.
Yeah, well, the skill of just being interested in someone makes you more interesting, because I think it leads to a lot of great relationships. And I think we come across a lot of people who, quite frankly, aren't that interested in you or me, and that's okay. But when you do finally come across someone who's, like, actually asking you questions and following up about whatever you're going through, I think it creates a deep, like, wow, someone actually cares, like, someone actually really wants to help or listen, at least, and I think it goes a long way. And so, yeah, I mean, it's good. And I'm glad I'm glad that you're creating a community to foster that and grow that. So for you, I'm imagining you're talking to adults. What do you feel like hinders people from really, like, getting out of their shells and finding what's true to them instead of what they think they should be doing because other people are saying it? Makes sense.
I think fear.
Okay.
Honestly, I think it's fear. We've been given so much messaging that we have to earn our worth, that we have to be productive all the time, that we have to look a certain way. All of the messaging that we get from the media and from mainstream society is so damaging. I mean, if you listen to the media and mainstream society, we're not supposed to age. We're not supposed to get sick. We're not supposed to be depressed. We're supposed to have everything under control. We're supposed to be able to predict outcomes. That's not life. That's not real life. Real life is unpredictable. It always changes. That's the only thing that remains the same, is it always changes. We are in mortal bodies that break down and that age and that have challenges. And all of that's okay. Mm-hmm. When we can let go of the fear around it, like, oh, something's really wrong. My hair's turning gray. Something's really wrong. I got fired from my job. Something's really wrong. This person broke up with me. And I know, obviously, a lot of those things are going to be challenging. But if we can drop the fear and just say, okay, I didn't expect this. I'm really struggling with this, but let's see what's here. Let's see what this has for me. I'm gonna go into this the best I can, and I'm gonna keep an open mind. I'm gonna be willing to be surprised. And like you said, one of your favorite activities is praying.
Yeah.
That faith, that trust,
Faith
that
over fear.
there is a plan and I'm on it.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. You can't just tell people, you can't teach people. It's something that they have to come to it on their own.
Yeah. I learned this from my church and I love it, but they say fear stands for false evidence appearing real. I really love that because honestly, 9 times out of 10, if I'm having fearful or anxious thoughts, those anxious thoughts never actually come into reality. Like, I don't know if you can relate, but for me, it never really becomes a reality. And so when I do have those fearful thoughts, I have to remind myself of that. It's like, well, what am I really scared of? Am I scared of being broke and having no money? When was that really a time of my life other than maybe when I was a kid? And there's just so many times I have anxious thoughts that never actually become a reality. And it's just like, what's the point of it? Like, why am I having these thoughts? Or
Well, it's our intuitive people are future oriented. We can future forecast, so we will like throw ourselves into the future when we're stressed.
Yeah.
So I would say like pull yourself back, and I'm going to end up broke and starving. Okay, there's actually peanut butter in the cupboard right now. So if you're going to starve, it's not going to be the next 2 hours because there's a jar of peanut butter in the cupboard right now. And it's like the little basic things like that.
Yeah. So I mean, this is good, and I've enjoyed this conversation, Lauren, and I'm curious, for people who would like to connect with you, Lauren, and know more about your work and what you do as a YouTuber, writer, and a community builder. How can people connect with you?
Well, I always say go to my website. It's just my name, Lauren Sapala, and join my newsletter. The newsletter is everything. The newsletter is where you're going to get everything, announcements about new classes, new books. And I do a question and answer series every week, sometimes multiple times during the week, where I have people send me in questions, intuitive people, introverts, and I answer them sort of like a Dear Abby column. So if you've got a burning question, you can send me your question. I'll put it in my question file, and I answer them all eventually. It might be a while, but you'll see your question in print. So you can do that. And like I said, I do a new class every month. I've already done, I think, 5 classes this year.
Wow.
And I do classes on all sorts of things. I did a giftedness class for intuitive people. I did a shame class. I did a creativity class. Right now, we're doing the Becoming Whole in a Broken World, people who are really overwhelmed by current events, but they want to stay in their lane and start creating things. So I do all sorts of different classes. I'm going to do a relationships class, I think, next month.
Wow, yeah. Well, y'all heard it. If you are an INFJ, or if you just simply felt heard in a way that you never felt heard before listening to this conversation, you know how to connect to Lauren, and please do reach out to her with any questions that you may have. And thank you all for listening, taking the time to watch this episode. I hope you gained some value from it. And remember, the future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams. Thank you.